I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Folks, two big reports just came out. This is breaking news that Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team are considering additional charges against Donald Trump and potentially other co-conspirators arising out of Donald Trump's willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy, making false statements, and obstruction of justice. Of course, a 38-count indictment was brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith back on June 8th. The arraignment was held on June 13th, but notably, the grand jury criminally investigating Donald Trump's crimes relating to the theft of government records did not stop conducting its work. So in a report by Maggie Haberman in the New York Times, we learned that additional subpoenas very recently have been issued from the grand jury that is still criminally investigating Donald Trump's conduct. Another report dropped by Andrew Feinberg from The Independent states that prosecutors are prepared to hit Trump and his allies with new charges, and it quotes sources familiar with the investigation as saying that prosecutors are now prepared to stack an additional 30 to 45 additional charges on top of the 37 count, or 38 if you include a combined count with co-defendant Walt Nauta, brought against Donald Trump on June 8th. They would do so using evidence against Donald Trump that has not yet been publicly acknowledged by the department, including other recordings prosecutors have obtained, which reveal Trump making incriminating statements. Now, Donald Trump likely now has in his possession this evidence as part of discovery that was turned over by Special Counsel Jack Smith, but it remains subject to a protective order, which Donald Trump and Trump's lawyers are not able to talk about publicly, nor is Special Counsel Jack Smith. In this article by The Independent, it says that Special Counsel Jack Smith is also waiting to see how Judge Eileen Cannon handles the case and whether she is going to give complete deference to Donald Trump as she did in the Trump versus U.S. case, where she unlawfully asserted jurisdiction back in August of 2022 and was overruled by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And all options are open, according to this reporting, when it comes to not just the additional charges Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team are considering bringing against Donald Trump and other co-conspirators, but also the venue in terms of where these charges can be brought. You may recall our earlier reporting here on the MeidasTouch Network a week or so back, where we speculated, based on the data before us, that there were potential charges that could be brought, for example, in New Jersey, because in New Jersey, Donald Trump was showing his aides and he was showing strangers and people ghostwriting books for Mark Meadows classified information, showing them top secret information, showing them national defense information, and that Trump's willful retention did not simply occur at Mar-a-Lago, but also occurred at Bedminster, giving rise to criminal liability there. And one of the things that we talked about is that under the Espionage Act, it is not just for the willful retention, which Trump was charged for, but there is also charges that could be brought for the disclosure of that information. That was not charged in the first indictment. Now, to add additional charges, the legal term for that is a superseding indictment, and we've been talking about here on the MeidasTouch Network that it is possible and perhaps even likely that Special Counsel Jack Smith would be lining up a superseding indictment, and that tactically Jack Smith would file the current complaint criminal indictment that you see in its current form, very detailed. Special Counsel Jack Smith's team did not ask for any gag orders, did not ask for any conditions. Why? So that Donald Trump would further incriminate himself, which Trump has done over the past several weeks since the indictment was voted on by the grand jury and announced back on June 8th. Think about all the incriminating statements Donald Trump has made about these documents and him taking the documents and him stealing the documents. And he says that they're his. All of this stuff can find its way into a superseding indictment and likely would be included in a superseding indictment. So we've got that reporting by Andrew Feinberg. Going to the New York Times report, investigation of Trump document case continues. After Trump's indictment, a grand jury has issued more subpoenas after the 38-count indictment. The article goes on to say how 3 weeks after Trump was indicted on charges of illegally retaining national security records and obstructing the government's efforts to reclaim them, a federal grand jury in Miami is still investigating aspects of the case. And in recent days, the grand jury has issued subpoenas to a handful of people who are connected to the inquiry. Those familiar with it said, while it remains unclear who received the subpoenas and the kind of information prosecutors were seeking to obtain, it is clear that the grand jury has stayed active and that investigators are digging even after the 38-count indictment was issued against Donald Trump and Walt Nauta. The New York Times article focuses on two specific employees who are probably of additional interest to Special Counsel Jack Smith, one being Susie Wiles, the representative of Donald Trump's PAC. She is the individual who was discussed in the indictment who Donald Trump was showing war maps and war plans to in September of 2021. She's still running the political activities for Donald Trump, as she is also likely a cooperating witness with Special Counsel Jack Smith. And some online sleuths did some incredible digging when it comes to Susan Wiles and had posted some photos of Susan that Susan Wiles had taken on or around the time that's referenced in the criminal indictment of Donald Trump's theft of these records. And she took photos of Donald Trump and somebody who was visiting Donald Trump, and they had to actually, like, in the photo they put out, like, redact the stuff on Donald Trump's desk. And there was also a photo right around the time that just emerged of Donald Trump walking, holding like a stack of papers with him wherever he goes. And that's certainly got to be of note to Special Counsel Jack Smith. Another focus of the investigation that we and the New York Times think is relevant here, and you know this name because we've talked about him here, Carlos de Oliveira. That's the maintenance worker at Mar-a-Lago who helped Walt Nauta move boxes. Walt Nauta was charged. De Oliveira, the maintenance worker, claimed he didn't even know what was in these boxes. He just saw Walt Nauta moving boxes, and then as the head of maintenance, Carlos de Oliveira said, "Hey, can I help you move these boxes?" But then remember some of those other facts we talked about with Carlos de Oliveira, which were very suspicious, like shortly after the moving of the boxes, de Oliveira was asking the head of IT at Mar-a-Lago in the Trump organization, "Hey, how do those surveillance cameras work? Can you tell me how long do they preserve the footage?" And then a few months later, in October or so, remember the pool was flooded. Yeah, that was Carlos de Oliveira, and the Mar-a-Lago pool flooded into the surveillance footage room and flooded the room and potentially damaged some of the surveillance footage. Not all of it, but that was highly, highly suspicious. So seems like Special Counsel Jack Smith is interested there. And what the New York Times talks about in the article is this is big, in a previously unreported detail, Jack Smith's team obtained a warrant to seize Mr. De Oliveria's phone as part of their investigation, according to people familiar. So big reporting, and you got to read these reports together. And the fact that New York Times has its sources saying more grand jury subpoenas, the criminal investigation is still going on. It's not like the grand jury just disbands after the indictment. They're still working. And then you got the independent Andrew Feinberg, and Feinberg's been right about a lot of things, and so has Maggie Haberman. So two sources, I think, who have been very, very, very on point in their reporting. Then you got Feinberg saying prosecutors are prepared to hit Trump and his allies with new charges. We're talking 30 to 45 charges. That comports with what we said. Hey, there are these crimes at Bedminster. Why would Special Counsel Jack Smith place all of his faith in Judge Eileen Cannon? Does he have a backup plan? I think the answer clearly and resoundingly is yes, which, going back to my original video when I found out that Cannon had the case, remember I said, look, let's not worry yet. I believe Jack Smith has this handled, and I think the data, it takes a while to get this data out there, but I think as we start seeing this, we see how brilliantly Special Counsel Jack Smith is handling this anyway. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And wherever you get audio podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast. It's free. Hit subscribe on our YouTube. It is free as well. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.